Ask the Mayor, your chance to ask the Mayor of Weymouth, Bob Hedlund, questions about the town of Weymouth and or anything else that you have concerns about. Ask the Mayor is pre-recorded. And now, here's Bob Hedlund.
Welcome to another edition of Ask the Mayor. And once again, I'm joined, as always, by the citizen advocate / inquisitor, James Melody. Thanks for handling the chores, Jim, of weeding through the voluminous number of emails that come pouring in.
They're piling up. They're absolutely piling up. And please, Bob, pardon me for interrupting. Keep them coming at askmayorbob@gmail.com.
And you haven't missed a show yet?
No.
Although he is on probation, folks.
First I've heard of it.
And I get to, I see that you get to use the special chair now for the second taping.
I'm wondering if you actually stole this from my house. I had something very similar 2 years ago that it looks like you added the wings.
No, it's the remnants from the decorations that the Garden Club did, as we talked about in the last show, from the Christmas celebration that was held.
And let's take another second to say thanks to the Weymouth Garden Club, which seems to be ubiquitous. They are everywhere. They do a great job. I'm personal friends with Susie Sullivan, who's heavily involved with the administration down there. And not only do they make this set look great, but they do that on a regular basis.
Do you know the primary property that they take care of in Weymouth?
Oh, no, I didn't actually know that they managed the property. No,
the Abigail Adams Green. They do a phenomenal job.
I see that in the paper almost every year. They get some press. But yeah, they're a great group of folks. And for the Wayfest that we did earlier in the year, they dressed up the stage. I mean, they're Johnny on the spot. They're a great volunteer group who, I think helps do a lot of these things for the town. And we'll probably
get in trouble this show because I see you've chosen a new mascot.
Trying to keep it seasonal. By the time everyone sees this, hopefully it will be the new year of 2017. So we thought we'd kick it off with some spirits. They are alcoholic in nature. And I asked Bob, because there is a distillery in town. Is that not an accurate statement? Does that come from a Weymouth brew?
No, South Shore resident who opened up a distillery in Dorchester. Rhonda Kalman, she used to be the original sales
director. I know Rhonda Kalman for Sam Adams.
That's her. Oh. Well, this is actually distilled from Sam Adams' 13th Hour Stout.
And I didn't actually read the label when it got placed on the table. Is it whiskey?
It's some kind of bourbon, I guess.
Bourbon,
yeah, it's unopened. I want to note we have not been in. We've not been in the cups.
I do have 2 straws for after the show, for the record. Bob and I will be sharing.
They brought it in to give it to us, just to generate some interest in her enterprise over there. And I guess she's doing pretty well. I haven't been over there yet.
When it made its way onto the table, there's a great article.
Well, we do have a distillery in Weymouth.
But that's why, henceforth, my reference, right?
We have our first brewery. We got someone. Look, we're going to have a second brewery soon. Now Braintree's getting on the bandwagon. They got their first brewery. But we're going to be ahead of them with our second. So,
well, this is a great. What I thought it was when it was first placed on our table was actually maple syrup, and there's a great article in Vanity Fair this month about the maple syrup business. 99% of the production occurs in New England and Canada, in that North American corner pocket. There's no other place in the world where maple syrup is produced. So it's really interesting as far as that whole aspect of the business.
Speaking of interesting, do you have any interesting questions?
Well, I should have asked you last show as it was closer to Christmas, but as you do look to conclude your first year as the mayor of our great town, was it a great year? Are you having fun? I know this question has been asked regularly. Are you enjoying the job? Is it everything you thought it was going to be? I know I'm a rapid fire here, but
probably not the day to ask me if I'm enjoying the job.
Okay. Well, listen. Again, the work that you've been doing is strong.
I got a thorn in me today.
Okay.
It's in my side.
Ouch. Is it related to me and my probation?
No. Well, I'm generally enjoying the job, yes.
Excellent.
Let's put it this way. I don't miss the old job.
Yeah, it seems like the workload has been tripled, if not quadrupled.
People say, your commute is much shorter. My commute's shorter, but I get home 3 hours later.
Yeah, and you're always on the job. You can't even go to I've been with you at different coffee shops, and
that part of it, I enjoy
folks.
I enjoy that. If people see me out and they want to weigh in on something, I enjoy that.
You know what I appreciate?
And finally, you see someone, sometimes they're tentative. You see them, they want to say something, but then they feel they don't want to bother you. But I don't mind that,
Listen, I know.
And they can also ask me questions here, not just in the supermarket.
I think I speak for all Weymouth residents that when I have seen you at these coffee shops in the morning, you're dressed appropriately with, pair of slacks and a dress shirt. Some other Weymouth politicians I see in their bathrobes and their slippers at some of these joints. I won't name names, but thank you for dressing up. I would literally see some of our elected officials walking into Bob's Coffee Shop in particular, one of your favorites.
You've seen an elected official in
walking in with bathrobe slippers.
An elected official.
That's a fact of the matter, yes, sir. I'll tell you more off camera. You reference my good buddy regularly.
I dress down, but I don't walk around in pajamas, Jim.
Well, and I just want to say thanks.
Let's get to some questions now.
I just want to say thanks to you. Does that now make a little bit more sense to you?
Let's go.
Ask your friends at Bob's. Okay. Right off the top, Bob, these are in no particular order. As always, Mr. Mayor, what is the criteria for having a town road changed to a one-way? That's from our friend Scott at Murphy at Gmail.
Did he indicate his road?
He did not, as far as I know. This is a brief question, which we always appreciate. And no, it is not specific to a road.
Probably the first step would be, other than, well, I guess he's asking a general question, but if it's his road, he would want to write in and tell us what road it is. But in general, the residents, if they have concerns and feel that it needs to be a one-way, which, by the way, we're in the process of doing up in the Hill Street neighborhood because of the amount of cut-through traffic they get by Hingham residents who use the commuter rail station in Jackson Square.
Wow.
So we're going through that process now. That's actually the first time in the year I've been in office that we're actually going through that process. So the process basically is that, they would contact us, or the neighbors would contact us. There would be a review by our traffic engineer and by the police department. And if they felt it was appropriate, as they have felt is the case in the Hill and Grant Street neighborhood in East Weymouth, they would then signal to us that this is something they would sign off on and believe is appropriate. And we would put the measure forward, and the town council would have to have a public hearing and approve it.
Yeah, it was an interesting question because it was so unusual. I couldn't imagine that you'd make that switch, but there have been instances where it's occurred, and you'd consider it if someone made a request.
I'll tell you, I think Quincy got out of control with it back in the 80s. I had a business in Quincy into the 90s, and they just, in residential neighborhoods, made it a maze to get around in some places, especially West Quincy. Wow. But we haven't used it too much. We're using it now. It's been really the only request we've had since I've been in office, and it was a legitimate request in that neighborhood. So,
well, now we all know. So petition, if you have that interest, petition the town planner's office. Is that where you'd go with that?
Well, they could write to us, and we would refer it to the town. The process would start with the traffic engineer. He would look at it, and the police department would do a review also.
Okay. Well, listen, speaking of urban renewal and developments, this one is from Summer Girl Having Fun at yahoo.com. She calls you Mater Bob. I think that might be a misprint, but maybe you're a matador she was trying to allude to. She lives right in the back of the herring run that was done over a couple years ago. In fact, it's Lake Street. She's not happy at all about the way it looks and all the lawn care that is being poorly taken care of. She's seen other parks in Weymouth that are being developed and taken care of. You guys are doing a great job, obviously, as far as redeveloping some of these parks. But her park, it's not being taken care of at all. And she's called the DPW in the town, and they don't do a thing about it. It looks so gross looking out my window. I would like to have something done about this. Can you help?
I'm not sure what park she's talking about.
It just says the back of the herring run.
You got some buddies you grew up with on Lake Street, right?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah, I know.
I know a couple of them.
Sure.
You familiar? Did you hang around that neighborhood when you were back in the day?
You know what? Back then, it was kind of where the bad boys hung. And I was such a good kid. But
you hung around with guys who lived on Lake Street.
Yes, but we didn't go over their residences.
I think some of them evolved years later as softball rivals.
Yeah,
I believe.
The night fights, I understand these games were big brawls.
So where would the park be?
I'm
talking about
sure.
Humphrey?
I couldn't say.
It says on the back of the herring run, though.
Yeah,
well,
can't help you.
My guess would be maybe it's the herring run itself at the end of Iron Hill Street on the backside of Lake Street.
Yeah, sure.
There's actually some things in the works for up there. We're pursuing a grant for there. That's the northern, or I should say the westernmost point on the Back River Trail that the town put together a master plan for a Back River Trail system back in the, I don't know, 80s or 90s.
Like a walking or biking trail?
90s. It would be a series of open space along, and it starts, we for viewers of WETC know, we opened up the Kibbe property recently, and that would be the start of the Back River Trail. Then you go to Abigail Adams State Park, cross 3A, and you're into Great Esker, over to the incinerator site. That's the next step that we're completing. We are going to be doing some work at the old landfill incinerator site. It'll be known as Osprey Overlook Park.
Lovely.
And so we're making strides throughout that whole series of, I jokingly referred to it at the Kibbe property opening as Weymouth's version of the Appalachian Trail, or maybe the Emerald Necklace. But the Iron Hill Street end of that probably will be one of the last portions of that will be kind of addressed, and we have some great ideas that the planning department has come up with for up there, and those ideas are taking shape now to be put forward as a grant request to fund that vision up there. So there's great potential up there. She could be talking about Humphrey, which is on Lake Street. It's a ball field there that we just invested some money in, but we got to everything except the grass and the turf, and I think she cites grass in her comments.
It looks crappy. I
so
think
she could be referring to that, and yes, the
lawn care is poorly taken care of.
Yes.
Poorly.
Well, the irrigation for that part of the work was not complete. We had to work with National Grid to get power in there to run the well for the irrigation system over there. But with the irrigation, with the drought we had, all my lawn, everyone, it's not too good. I didn't have irrigation at my house. I have no lawn left.
Yeah.
So it was a problem that we had to deal with everywhere, not just town parks, but private residences. So with that irrigation complete, we should have that field coming over the next year in a really nice shape. It gets a lot of use, so we have to stay on top of that.
We all learn a lot when we tune into Ask the Mayor.
Well, I don't know if I answered a question because I couldn't quite zero in on the geographic location specifically that she's talking about. But because she said when she looks out her back window, right?
Well, I for the first time becoming aware of this Emerald Necklace, this walking trail that you're assembling, and I think that sounds fantastic. And
I think we did the nice piece on the Kibbe, and we'll do a follow-up, and we'll talk about all of the spots along the way once we get
and how it connects. I think it'll be great.
Yeah, once we start work on, we're hoping to take the incinerator down. The town solicitor is cooking up a novel plan to get the the down.
Is that active right now? I haven't been down there since I was a kid.
It hasn't been active since
I thought
40 years.
No
Jim?
kidding. I thought a mutual friend of ours I thought was employed down there about 10 years ago. One of these hidden state town jobs that maybe it's one of those no-show jobs that we don't have yet.
I don't know when that thing shut down.
So for 40 years that hasn't been active.
Well, maybe, no. The incinerator itself hasn't been active for. They built it in the '60s, right? And they shut it down before the bonds were even paid off. But later they used it as a transfer station.
Okay.
So what happened was they built it, then all these federal clean air laws kicked in, and it became obsolete.
Okay.
Right after they opened it, pretty much. But then the site was used as a transfer station, so the town would dump their trash there, and it would be repurposed, repackaged, and compressed, and sent back out.
But it's basically
so that's
vacant.
Probably when your friend worked there.
Maybe,
but it wasn't burning. It wasn't burning trash at that time.
But it's been basically inoperable for 20 years.
And we're under pressure from the state to take the incinerator down.
Oh, no kidding.
We're under intense pressure from the state to take it down, and the cost to take it down is $1 million.
Would they pay for that, or is that something you have to fund? Okay.
Something we have to fund.
And then if that was taken down, it would just be open space, and that's the Osprey.
Well, the plan
Park
that we're doing now, we actually to get this grant, which we're confident we're going to get, we have to. Or actually, we may have already got it. We have to, we did get it. We have to subdivide off much of the old landfill and put a conservation restriction on it, which we want to do anyway. And the incinerator site itself, the incinerator will be left zoned as industrial.
Well, so somebody could come in and operate a business there, arguably.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to, but
Right.
at least until we get the incinerator down, then we would consider rezoning it again.
Hey, it's not a question here, but it is connected to some things that have been, ongoing in our thread during the course of this calendar year. Did I hear some good news about the library grant that you were pursuing? Has anything come in on that officially? I thought I heard some.
No,
okay.
no. We're moving through the process, but
Okay.
we're very confident. We know the towns we're competing against, one of which is Hingham.
Oh, it literally is a limited amount of funds that towns compete for,
Yes.
huh? Okay.
Yes, and Weymouth, I believe, is the only town of the 8 towns I represented in the legislature that never went after one of these grants.
Yeah, the Hingham Library doesn't seem that old. I stop by every now and again.
They're going for the second grant on that library.
Well, geez.
They're going to do some more work. So we think we're in a competitive place, and the fact that we haven't sought one in the past helps us a little bit.
And I maybe I saw in the paper, was it maybe just part of the ongoing process, but you'd keep the library in its current location? Maybe that's what I read.
That's what
Is
you
that
read
okay?
recently
Yeah.
as part of our due diligence to satisfy the criteria with the state for the grant application. You have to go through a process to evaluate sites.
Okay.
And there is no other site that really works.
Yeah, and it's a great
And in
location.
fact, yesterday I saw some brief work by the architect. I love and the committee loves the footprint, the way they situate the building on the existing property. And it's got some interesting topography there. It's going to look over a little courtyard. You'll be able to look over a new playground. And you're going to have the field, Weston Field, ball field upgraded
Well,
with some
could use
lighting.
it, yeah, sure.
So
Oh,
it's going to be
lighting
a
too, huh?
nice setting back there. The only thing I didn't like was the initial rendering of the building itself.
Okay.
So we're playing around with that. But there'll be a very public process and input on the 17th. Check me on that. Go to my Facebook page. But on the 17th, we have a public meeting for that initial round of input from the public on some of the on the process for going through and coming up with a final building design.
So in our perfect world scenario, that if you got the grant, that library would be inoperable. It would be leveled.
You're going to test me on the timeline.
No,
I can't remember now,
not
but
on the timeline. But what would happen would be that library would be shut down and not be usable until the new one
it
was
would be
built.
torn down.
Yeah. Okay. So it'd be,
and
would
the
be
needs that it has right now, it doesn't make sense to put the money into that building.
Well, it might send folks
We're
up to the
talking
fog.
millions of dollars in repairs that
No,
are needed there.
we've covered that ground for sure. But it'll maybe encourage a little bit more traffic up at the Fog Library, which I visit quite regularly, and could definitely anybody who walks in there will come back again. I'm sure it's just a great spot. All right. Well, moving on. Some of these are
Actually,
similarly themed.
You know what? I just had an idea. Can we do an info zone slide on the library meeting, please? So we'll run that.
Oh,
on
great, as we're
WTC.
talking about it, yeah.
Yeah.
But the rendering of the physical building itself, you won't release that, the one that you were commenting on that you're not a huge fan of.
I joked with the committee that it looked like what my 7-year-old put together with Lego.
Well, it's good to speak of Legos. If you're redoing the park in the back, that would be great news for those of us who have younger kids. That park could definitely use a little love and care, that's for sure. All right, well, listen, let's move on to something a little different train and track. Susan Donald checked in, and she wants to know about parking and abandoned cars. What is the point of having ordinances about overnight and street parking if they are not enforced? In the streets around Weymouth, cars park all over the place, on sidewalks even, and on the street. Driving down many streets is like a slalom course. Many cars seem to park on the street despite having driveways. This is because there's a bunch of junk boats, cars, and crap allowed to accumulate on people's property. Again, there is an improper storage of vehicles that I seem to notice wherever I go, and it's not being enforced. I've been looking at my neighbors' unlicensed abandoned vehicles out my windows for 4+ years. It has never moved, despite contacting the town about it, and I'm sensitive to this issue with you, Susan, because I had a not so dissimilar issue in my neighborhood, and it was very frustrating to make any progress on that
All right,
one.
so a multi-part question. And I ran into this trying to help a constituent out. As far as number of cars, as long as they're registered, there are some limitations on commercial vehicles and the tonnage of that vehicle. So you can't be parking heavy trucks. I think it's somewhere over a ton and a half or something. Don't quote me on that, but
Sure. There is a limit.
But as far as other vehicles,
Or abandoned.
other vehicles, yeah, as long as they're registered. If they're unregistered, then it runs into an issue. If you have junk vehicles there, it runs into and could come up against our blight ordinance, which is new, which the town never had, which we implemented in the council. I know last year started talking about it, and Solicitor Callanan drafted a blight ordinance, which the town council adopted this year. So you can contact us, and we can have our Board of Health, which is the entity that would go out and enforce blight ordinances. It has just been used for the first time in 2 instances since we adopted it.
Thumbs up on that one. For a building?
Actually, one was for a building itself that was in disrepair. So I think it's been used more than twice now, actually. A couple times in the instances of buildings that are in disrepair. And I know of at least one other instance, the Board of Health, and there may be more, but was a call we transmitted to them, which led to it being enforced for junk that was all over someone's yard. And I think it's more than a couple instances in each of those examples now that I think about it. So it is being utilized, and we think, and it hasn't been tested, but we think it passed, constitutional muster, what we drafted. So she can call us if she has a specific spot. As far as the on-street parking, yeah, I mean, the police department, if it's a real issue, is going to enforce that, especially with winter upon us. So I would encourage her to notify my office, and we would follow up on that if she's not getting satisfaction from a particular town department. Let us know.
All right, well, listen, it's a kind of a theme here at the Ask the Mayor show. You're fantastically accessible. Most of these problems or questions that people have, they can take directly to your office, and you'll hopefully either deal with them directly or filter them to the appropriate department, it sounds like.
By the way, the library meeting I talked about, Jones Room at the library, our intrepid WET staff informs us is December 13th.
December 13th.
13th, 7 p.m., Jones Room at the library. If you care about your library. Oh, that question came from you. So
yes.
We will see you as the citizen advocate representing the viewers that night, the 13th, at the library.
I'll be the one with the big sign saying, new library, please, Mayor Bob. But of course, by the time the show airs, if our timing's correct, it'll be in January, about a month after that.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Actually, this show will air after that meeting has already been held. So I'm hoping that WETC will be running the InfoZone slide on it.
Okay, well, good stuff. And listen, just like I've got questions, I know many of the folks out in town have similar ones. Please don't forget, reach our show through askmayorbob@gmail.com is the best way to get these questions answered most directly. I'm really impressed, Bob, and I say this, of course, I am the advocate. I will take shots at you where I think it's appropriate, but the open door policy that you're suggesting that people can have, access to your office, it's impressive. I know in the past I've had some issues with different things in town, questions type things, and you go to some of these departments and you do feel stonewalled.
I'm sure that,
so they'll be able to come directly to your office.
I'm sure the viewers
awesome.
will appreciate the fact that you're being extremely kind to me, as they probably noted when I opened up the show that you were on probation. So you're doing a very nice job of being
if I'm
very
on probation, I
complimentary.
fear for the WETC staff who is not able to answer any of the questions.
All right, let's
that
get
you
to some more
asked.
questions. We're running out of time. Let's go.
You guys, we'll start our own show. That's Jim. All right, Mayor, this one's about Great Esker Park and Puritan Road. Mr. Mayor, the continued collapse of the roadway at the Puritan Road entrance to Great Esker Park is a long-standing issue and continues to be a safety concern for the neighbors and park visitors. We realize this problem predates your election as mayor, and the previous administration began planning, but now I've been told they're waiting for state funding. What if the funding request is denied? This needs to be a priority. Why not use CPA money or other funds to correct the problem? Where's the Waterfront Committee on this issue? So this is from John Childs, who's on Winstead Road.
Yeah, he's right. This is a pain right now for me. We have had actually 2 state grants.
And pardon me for interrupting it. And the CPA is an acronym that stands for?
Community Preservation
Act.
Well, we call it our CPC, Community Preservation Committee.
Okay.
And it's the Community Preservation Act that he cites. But anyway, we did receive a state grant to do the feasibility and permitting. We got another state grant to do the engineering, which is being done now. And this thing has spiraled out of control from a very small project to a very large project.
This specific gate?
Yes.
Oh, no kidding.
And
I've been down there too. It doesn't seem like it's in as bad a shape as this guy's saying with respect to that person.
Well,
what's your opinion?
It's opened up a can of worms for a whole series of related issues with conservation, et cetera, et cetera. So We are doing the engineering work, and then we will have to identify a funding source which has grown fivefold the cost of this.
Oh, no kidding.
And we're up to an ungodly amount of money that I don't even want to say on air and give myself indigestion.
Just the management of that particular entrance, huh?
But it's mid six figures.
Ooh,
So,
wow. Well, listen.
so we're on it. We're a little ahead of where he thinks we are, but now we have a challenge on the final cost. And he mentions CPA, CPC.
Yeah.
Likely some of the funding for the work will have to come from CPC, but unfortunately the state match for CPC is diminishing, and we don't have a lot of money in our CPC, so it'll be a mix of funding sources when we get the thing engineered.
You know, you've referenced grants on a regular basis throughout this
We're on a roll with
year.
grants.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, is this seems...
I got to compile a list. It's coming in all over the place with stuff that...
I was going to pay a year-to-year comparison. I don't ever recall even grants being in a news article or media from the last couple of years.
I talked about it in the campaign.
No, well, I mean, prior to your administration.
No, right, and
okay.
it's something I talked about in the campaign that I thought we could be more aggressive on in town. We got a great grant coordinator. It's not his title anymore. He has a bigger title, but Nick Buellins does an awesome job.
Oh, so there's a dedicated person on staff to pursue all these different opportunities?
Well, partially. The
Okay.
engineering department. It comes from a variety of sources. He's the key guy that coordinates them all. And we're on a roll. I mean, we've got a couple we're announcing in the next couple of weeks by the time the show airs. And we got the huge $1.5 million in the landing through the MassWorks grant. We've got Complete Streets. We've got the park grant we think is coming. The library grant will be huge. So we'll compile all those at some point. But in the past, this town was not aggressive in going after them and didn't ask for certain things. As I told you, like the library grant, we've never sought one. And I've seen community after community on the South Shore get these things.
Sure.
So I think we got time for one more.
Well, I just, as a connected to that, and I'm curious because one of the things you ran on, of course, was the experience you have on the Hill. There may be some opportunities and some knowledge that you have that the local folks didn't have. Is this germane to that? Is our connection to these grants as a result of your maybe stronger awareness?
But, you know, we present Nick does a great job and presents very strong grant applications. The backup work that has to be done, and then, you know, me being able to pick up the phone and
once the process is started.
We're going after one right now. Lieutenant Governor has direct discretionary control over, and you know, I've used my relationship and friendship with her to lobby for it. So we're hoping we get that one. That's one we haven't even talked about that's coming down the pike that actually relates to, I think, a question we got last show, but we'll talk more about that in a future show.
Wow, and this is the first time I've ever heard that the Lieutenant Governor actually has specific responsibility to control over anything. Wow, that's interesting.
Other than cutting ribbons. I hope she's not watching now. I might have endangered getting that grant.
Well,
let's get to the last question. I'm getting the signal over here.
Absolutely. We're on our closing out, and one of our most diligent questionnaires is Jason Thayer, who's a longtime Weymouth resident.
Maybe we won't get to this one.
Jason usually has his tongue in cheek or a good sense of humor when he writes into us, and among this outreach, the questions involved in this outreach.
Is it about music?
It's not about music this time. He's does a little different track and train. Okay, Mayor, let's get to the real issue at hand. In your opinion, which finishing wrestling hold was the most feared or effective? Sergeant Slaughter's
Most feared or what?
Or effective. Sergeant Slaughter's Cobra Clutch, Ric Flair's Figure 4, Iron Mike Sharp's Forearm Smash, Bret the Hitman Hart's Sharpshooter, lastly, Vince McMahon's You're Fired. I'm not a wrestling fan, so I can't speak to any of this.
Well, obviously McMahon runs the company. Ric Flair, my favorite guy. I got to hang out with him one night, so that was pretty cool, so I'd be partial to him. But since Iron Mike Sharp had the slowest, and he just died this past year.
Oh boy.
He had the slowest healing sports injury in history.
Which was?
He had a forearm injury, and he had some kind of a brace on there for decades.
Wow.
And when he hit you with it,
that's what put
was
you out,
very
huh?
effective, yeah. And I would go with him because he was usually the underdog. He didn't win that many matches compared to the other guys. So I would have to say the Iron Mike Sharp forearm smash, which some suspected was a foreign object hidden inside it.
Aha. Well, listen, this is why we have posted and regularly request questions coming into askmayorbob@gmail.com.
Iron Mike Sharp was a germaphobe, by the way.
No,
He used to take like hour
like Howie
long
Mandel.
showered like 10 times a day, hour at a time. Stuff.
Well, there's no question, there's no category that is off limits or out of bounds regarding askmayorbob@gmail.com. I'm going to tell you about gambling beside Jake the Snake Roberts in Vegas 25 years ago, who I think we also lost. But on that note, once
he's
again...
alive.
Oh, is he still with us?
He's alive.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks again for everybody tuning in, writing the questions, and again, a happy and healthy 2017 as we bid adieu to 2016.
Happy New Year.
See you at the library hearing.
And stay tuned for...
Then stay tuned for Get Smart. Dun, dun, dun.
we almost got through a show without a reference of another one. You were slipping, Jimbo.
I know.
If you have a question, please email the mayor at askmayorbob@gmail.com. That's askmayorbob@gmail.com. Maybe your question will be answered on the next episode of Ask the Mayor.